Hey, growing up in Kansas City meant backyard barbecues that went late into the night, discovering new places, new clubs downtown in areas like Westport and the West Bottoms, and going out for that tasty barbecue, knowing which spots to hit and which spots are just for the tourists. With its rich history, its booming job market, and its tight-knit communities, it's no wonder why so many people want to call Kansas City home. But while life living here can be just as inviting as it sounds, there are some real estate truths that don't make it into the typical sales pitch. After helping countless families navigate the market over the years, we've uncovered some key insights that most real estate agents would rather keep quiet. So before you start house hunting, take the next few minutes to learn what the locals know and what your agent probably would rather not tell you. Let's give them the truth. All right, nothing but the truth, folks. Let's dig into the details with number one, new construction. It sounds amazing, but there are some issues that you should know about with new construction. You've got a lot of options. It's going on all over the city, to the north side, the south side, the east side, and the west side. Lots of options. But there are some things that you need to know about, and that is, in the lower priced communities, you will see quicker construction, maybe less quality. So as you walk into some of these cookie cutter neighborhoods, the goal is to get as many in the ground as they can to get. We've got a shortage of inventory, so they're just rocking and rolling trying to build houses. And sometimes when you build houses that way, you kind of quality. What am I trying to say here, Max? Yeah, they don't build them like they used to, is the term. And yeah, when they're throwing up houses left and right, building houses for speculation, sometimes they're stamping them out, and, it's not the dreamy custom home build job that you envision in your head. You can't really buy anything new construction under the 400s. It's tough. So, when you're buying a $400,000 house, you think, hey, this is going to be pretty nice. But when it's new and, that's the entry level for new construction. So you should definitely be aware of that. Yeah, and definitely be aware of price, but I will say, price, you kind of get what you pay for sometimes. So just because it's the cheapest new construction house out there, there may be a reason for that. Maybe it's the way where the neighborhood is, or how it's laid out, or just the speed of construction they're trying to put these things together. What is good about Kansas City is we don't have, most of our homes that are built here are built by these gigantic corporations. Pulte Homes did come through here once upon a time and built a bunch of homes kind of in that speed build kind of style without a lot of character. But for the most part right now in Kansas City, you will have a little, Hunt Midwest is here, and they've got a couple of communities and they do a pretty good job. But for the most part, Kansas City has a lot of local builders that will get into certain subdivisions. I mean, you might have 3, 4, or 5 builders in this subdivision that are kind of taking it. So you have lots of options for floor plans. The builders are kind of competing against each other to make the best house, so they can market the best house and get the most customers. So when builders are competing to have the best house and to get your business, at the end of the day, the customer wins and you get a great product. So that's one thing that I did want to point out that's really good about Kansas City. So just kind of keep an eye out for that. Yeah, so Kansas City, the profit margin is quite a bit lower in the Kansas City market than it is in other markets around the country. But it's because of that, that competition from the local builders. They're not a ton of giant builders, but we know all of the builders that you really need to watch out for and the ones that are great. So you can lean on us for that. But just with new construction, there are some things that you should know about. You get, a lot of it can be the cost of the lot. You could, in the same subdivision, there could be a great lot in the back of a cul-de-sac that backs to a pond that's $200,000. And, in the same subdivision, there's a lot that's $100,000. Yeah, down here we do have a lot of clay, but you also have to watch out for rocks. So a lot of our contracts will put in a rock clause. If we go in to put the foundation and they find a lot of rock, it could be really expensive to, you can't just dig the rock out. You gotta maybe get some explosives going. Get out the dynamite. Not the dynamite. So anyway, if that happens, it increases price of the house dramatically. You can also run into a scenario which we have where there might be a cave under the lot. And then people, you buy this lot, you build a house and find out there's a cave. So there's all kinds of stuff you can do to kind of prevent this from happening. And that's kind of where we step in. But we want to let you know all the things that are possible. There's also a lot of stuff that the builders won't tell you. If you just walk right up and knock on a door at a nice new construction house, there's always an agent in there that works for the builder. They got the garage door open. They're giving you a coffee, maybe even a beer, telling you to come on in and check out this great neighborhood. Next thing you know,
talking me into it.
Next thing you know, you're buying this house that doesn't have a garage door opener. There's no fence. You got no steps coming off your deck to your backyard.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a walkout, maybe not, but there's all these things that you need to know about. There doesn't come with the blinds. You don't get a mailbox, so you close on your house, you move it, and you got to spend another $40,000 to get it how you want it. So Yeah, that is true. I mean, everything's new, so you can kind of get away from some of the, older HVAC, older roof, might need some expenses down the road. However, there's expenses up front. When there's no blinds or window treatments, definitely no storm doors or any of the little bells and whistles that somebody will add to a house after living there. So you got to take the good with the bad. But yeah, there are a lot of hidden expenses before you can even move in with new construction.
Yeah. And then it's time of year too, like you might not be able to put sod in, and just some of the, until spring rolls around. So you might just be living with a dirt yard for a couple months. So just all these things that it's just good to talk through so you know exactly what you're getting into.
Yeah, I will say as far as the timeline goes, typically, back in the good old days when I first started selling real estate 15 years ago, you could build a house usually from contract to closing would take about 6 months. Since, lately, I think it's the supply chain disruptions and everything that have happened through COVID have kind of extended that time frame out to more like a year from contract to closing. All that has to do with getting permits, and before they can even start digging and breaking ground, they have to have it surveyed, and there's a lot that goes into it. But that time frame has been stretched out, and there's no guarantee that they're going to hit those timelines. So, if we have a bad winter and they can't, and it stops them from doing things, or we have a lot of rain, the closing date is just in theory when you enter into a contract. So you have to have some flexibility with your timing.
Yeah, we've got a client right now that's 3 months delayed from our winter, and some other issues. So yeah, 3 months is a long time. So yeah, the rule of thumb right now with new construction is, put a closing date on the contract, but don't count on it.
Yeah, so you really need some flexibility, and you have to be able to qualify to purchase that property from a financial perspective without selling your house. And you have to put up non-refundable earnest money, which is, usually what percentage of sometimes it's 2-3%.
Yeah, it's sometimes up to 5%, depending on if it's a spec home or what the deal is, if it's custom.
Yeah, so oftentimes they're not going to build that house unless you contracted them to do that. So they're going to want you to put up $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 non-refundable. And then, when they start moving the date, pushing it back 3-4 months, that can be pretty frustrating from a buyer's perspective when you've got all that money tied up and you're going to lose it if you cancel. And so you have to have that flexibility planned out. And, more than a lot of times if you're watching us on our YouTube channel, you might be moving from out of state and not have flexibility with your timing. So definitely something to consider with new construction. A couple other things around new construction is they provide a builder's warranty for 1 year, typically is customary, where the builder will come back and, honor their work for up to 1 year. There's manufacturer's warranties that extend beyond that for all the equipment, but they give out those builder's warranties for a reason, because the house will settle within that first year. You may get some cracks in the concrete, definitely some sheetrock joint cracks, maybe some nail pops. And they oftentimes will come back within that first year and fix those things. But not every builder is
quick to jump to your request.
Yeah, comes back like they should. So there's a lot of builders that have really good reputations about coming back and taking care of their punch list items, and some that are a nightmare to deal with. So we can definitely give you some advice along those things. A couple other things. New construction is kind of like buying a new car. When you go on the lot, I mean, it's nice getting a new car and nobody's ever been in it. But the minute you drive it off the lot, it loses some value because it's no longer new. I mean, if you go to sell it, very similar with new construction home. A lot of the reason people are buying them is because they're new. So you do get a little bit of instant depreciation, more so than when you buy a resale property. So something to think about. If you buy new construction, you probably want to plan to be there, a little longer than average in order to get caught back up.
And it really helps because, the year you move into your home, you may be there for 1 or 2 years and they're still building new houses in that neighborhood, which leads to not only, construction fatigue and you're hearing nail guns go off Monday through Friday, but your home's really not going to start increasing in value until that neighborhood's built out and they're done, because somebody could pick your house, which is 3 years old, or just go 2 doors down to get a brand new house that probably has a couple cool bells and whistles that yours doesn't. So you're constantly competing competing with that new construction price.
Yeah, and you have to live among that new construction, so you might be picking up a nail in your tire when you're coming in.
We'll be picking up a nail there.
There'll be mud on the street from the trucks and that kind of stuff, so it's called, what is it?
Construction fatigue.
Construction fatigue. What a great word or term. But yeah, it's true. I mean, when you're in a new neighborhood, you get a little worn out from all the construction going around and the noise and the, when they're putting on the roof, they've got the mariachi music playing in the background, and it can be a little annoying at times. And one more thing to consider around new construction, especially in the Kansas City, Missouri area, there are some new construction building codes around energy efficiency that we've talked about on the channel before. It has added like $30,000 to every new construction home to adhere to those codes. There are some legal things that are getting ironed out. A new bill just got through the House and to change those requirements, but I think currently you have to adhere to them until all of that gets through the system. So there could be some additional costs to meet the new building codes.
Now that you know about the quality differences in new builds and construction, let's talk about a hidden fee, the earnings tax.
Yeah, we talk about it a lot on our channel, but we really can't talk about it enough because most people don't even mention it. In Kansas City, Missouri, if you live or work, if you have an address on your tax return that you work or live in the area, you pay a 1% earnings tax on your gross income, which is gross because it ends up being a lot of money that you pay to the city of Kansas City. So, if you move to Parkville or Liberty and you also don't work in Kansas City, Missouri, then you can get away from that tax. But you should know about it because a lot of people live and work in the area.
Yeah, because I don't live you live in Kansas City.
I do.
So he gets to pay it. I don't, but I still sell houses that are in Kansas City, Missouri. So a portion of my income has to go to that. So it's kind of a weird one. So yeah, just know if you're transferring here for work, find out if you're going to be working in Kansas City, Missouri, and that's just something would be good to know.
Yeah, on the Kansas side, then you don't even need to worry about it. If you live and work on the Kansas side, then you're getting out of it.
Real nice.
Real nice. But yeah, that can really add up. So that is why if you're self-employed and you're incorporated, then your corporation doesn't necessarily have to live at your house. So I am incorporated and our office is in Gladstone. So my corporation lives at my office. I can get out of some of it, but I still do have to pay it on my salary portion of my income. So there's some little tricks that we can help you with on ways to avoid it. But just know that it's there and we can consult you on all the details and how it's going to affect you personally. Yep, so hidden costs. You got the earnings tax and then there are other taxes.
Yeah, we've got the property tax, which every house in the KC metro area, Kansas and Missouri, is going to have property tax. And that's going to go, it's going to differ. It's going to vary depending on your county and your city. But for the most part, you can kind of count on 1% to get of the value of the property, kind of get a rough estimate. You're going to pay a little bit more in those nicer areas that have the nicer school districts. And I will say that even though, it may be important to you to be in a nicer school district, to be, you have kids, so you're going to be in a nicer neighborhood paying more property tax. But I will say that the caveat to that is the more property tax you pay in general, the appreciation is a little bit faster in those areas because those are the desired areas people want to be in. But if you're real sensitive to taxes and you're trying to avoid as many as you can, there's lots of areas on the outskirts that you can get to avoid a lot of those high taxes.
Yeah, going from Clay County where I live to Clinton County, just a little bit on the north side, dramatic difference. I mean, it probably goes from 1% to 0.25% of the value of the home. I mean, it's a big difference, but then the schools aren't as desirable, or, maybe they're good academically, but they don't have all the sports and, college credit courses, and, there's a lot that goes into that tax. Another tax that we all get to pay, whether you're Kansas or Missouri, is state income tax. So we're not like Texas and Florida where you don't have state income tax. I think those areas usually have higher property tax, but definitely you're going to get nailed with state income tax. And then, if you have a boat or your cars, those are property too.
Yeah, property tax will get you. And then we have sales tax here.
Gosh, dang, they get you every...
A tax. So yeah, lots of taxes.
If you earn it, you own it, you spend it, or you save it, you're going to get taxed on it.
Yeah. Yeah, luckily, our tax rates are fairly low. And usually when you compare it to other cities, it's kind of all like if it all kind of balances out or shakes out in the wash, but just something to know. I mean, I lived out of the West Coast in Oregon. We didn't have sales tax, which was kind of nice, but there's other taxes that make up for that.
You can buy a car out there and...
Yeah, no tax.
You buy a car out there and drive it here?
I did, actually.
Really?
But they've got some, when you get to Kansas City to register your car, they asked you if you've had it for, bought it within the last 12 months. I mean, if you have, they're going to nail you for that. But luckily it was COVID and there was some gray areas and nobody met in person, so yeah, anyway.
You tax dodger. Yeah, we don't like paying tax. We don't like for you to pay tax, so we will consult you on, how those things affect you, and we know all the different ways to try and minimize it as best you can.
Yeah, but certainly if you're coming from a state with no sales tax and you're thinking about buying a new car, you should buy it before you get here. As long as you're not going to jeopardize your credit score and your debt to income ratio enough to disqualify you from buying a house.
Yeah, that's right. Tons of hidden costs to buying a home. I mean, you've got closing costs, you've got your tax escrows that they'll collect, your homeowner's insurance. Well, you have to build in your escrow, loan origination fee, appraisal, inspections, maybe an HOA transfer fee, depending on the neighborhood you join. So lots of hidden expenses out there, and, really too many to go into in this video, but we can analyze it for you depending on your personal situation and show you, how it's all going to shake out for you. So taxes are a hassle, but speaking of hidden hassles,
yeah, this is a good one.
This is the begging for Kansas City. The DMV is, nobody likes going to the Department of Motor Vehicles.
Yeah, and ours has never been fun in anyone I've ever been to in Kansas City. And I will contrast it with Oregon, which was like a drive-through DMV where it was like a car wash. You drove in, hang out your window, they put something on your exhaust pipe to test for emissions. What year's your car, signed and paid right there, and I'm done. In Kansas City, you will probably have to go, depending on the age of your car, you're gonna have to go get it inspected by a mechanic, and then go to the DMV with that. Proof that you paid your personal property taxes, your ID, a couple pieces of mail maybe to prove it's you. I can promise you that the first time you go, you'll forget one thing, and you'll stand in line for 30 minutes, maybe longer, and then you'll have to go back again.
You have to take a number when you go. Have you ever seen Beetlejuice where the guy takes a number?
He's there for days or weeks.
Yeah, it's like he's turning into a skeleton. Yeah, it's like that. It is so painful. And then you finally get called up to the desk, and another good movie where the sloth is talking at the DMV, that cartoon. Anyway, it's so painful, but everybody has to go through it, so we all get to joke about it.
Yeah, there's always a huge line. I can just say, don't shoot for the last couple days of the month.
Or go at lunchtime.
Or go at lunchtime, or go at 4:30 right when you get off. It's just always a disaster. So yeah, good luck with that. I hope they do something about it, but they haven't done anything in 46 years to my knowledge. So
really, it's not, if you're not paying sales tax on a new car there.
There's a lot you can do online now.
Yeah, and it's not that expensive really for license fees.
No.
I mean, I shouldn't say that because they'll probably.
Yeah, it's usually a couple $100 or something. But when you buy a new car, you're going to have to go through that, and that's where you're going to pay your sales taxes at the DMV, and they're going to nail you. It depends where you live, but 7, 8, 9%, something like that, depending on. And it's frustrating. So
the DMV can definitely test your patience, but just imagine if you're relocating to the area and you get stuck with an agent, how that could test your patience. Because most people don't realize that you can, even if you're with a relocation company, you don't have to work with the people that they designate to you.
Yeah, and oftentimes when they designate, you don't get to interview them, you're just stuck with them, and maybe it's a great experience, but maybe it's not, right? There's a really low bar to entry level to be a realtor. You have to take a 40-hour class and pass a test, and now you're a realtor. So you don't know if they've got any track record. You don't know if they've, been selling for a couple of years or just start. Anyway, there's a lot that goes into it. We've personally been doing this over 20 years now and sold thousands of homes and helped thousands of families. So definitely do a little research there. But to Max's point, if you're watching us and you like us and we are not on your relocation list, you can ask to be placed with us. And we just have to fill out some paperwork because relocation gets a little bit of a cut. And we should be good to go. We do work with several relocation companies already, but there are hundreds of relocation companies out there, so it's impossible to be registered with them all.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about, is they take a percentage, a referral fee from us and help provide benefits to you.
for that. And usually the amount that they take from us is more than the benefit that they give you. So, you can talk to us about it and we can help you navigate that whole situation. If you're working with a relocation company, we can definitely work with you. We're more than happy to pay the referral fee to them and provide you excellent service. But, a lot of brokerages that they specialize in relocation, working with relocation. And, sometimes they will, if they're getting paid 100% to go work with someone else and then they have their relocation clients where they're getting paid 66%, they might give you 66% of their effort, which we absolutely will not. We'll give you 100% effort all the time, but we'll talk through all those potential issues with you and what we can do. So hit us up if you're working with relocation and we'll discuss the details.
So if we're talking about relocating, let's talk about relocating to overhyped spots versus some hidden gems.
All right, let's do it. Yeah, I think a lot of real estate agents will steer you to where they live and where they work, and they know it better, and it's not far, it's easy. And, if you are working with somebody and they're kind of trying to steer you to one particular area, you got to watch out for that. One thing that's great about working with us is we work the entire Kansas City metro area. And we'll show you this map here about the area that we cover, but we cover the entire metro and we even go beyond that. Know the whole metro inside and out. So we're not going to try and steer you into one area in particular based on what's best for us. It's always about what's best for you guys.
Yeah. So on this map here, this is like what we did last year, the families we helped, the buyer families and the seller families. And there's almost 250 of them. And we cover the entire KC metro area pretty evenly. Some agents in Kansas City will only be licensed in Kansas or Missouri, and they may not tell you that, but you'll just find yourself only looking at houses in one state if you're relocating. All of the agents on our team, Max and I, are both licensed in both states, so we don't care. We want you to be happy. When we meet a client, we go through this process. You guys are considered clients for life to us. We're going to help you with this, and we also feel we're probably going to help you sell this when you transition either to your next house or out of state again. And we want to, make sure you bought a great product that not only you can live in and enjoy, but it'll also be something that grows in value and is easy enough to sell when the time comes.
That's an excellent point. So what we coach all of our agents to do is you're not going in there and trying to sell every house you show. We feel like the house will sell itself to you. You'll fall in love with it. And our role is to point out the potential problems. So not only the problems with condition, but the problems for potential resale. So, it'll happen where there's a highway in the backyard and we're showing the property to someone and it's a really nice house, and they don't really care about the highway in the backyard. Maybe they are coming from New York and they're used to traffic, but that could be a potential resale issue down the road. So even if it doesn't matter to you, it may matter to someone, and we're going to point that out to you to make sure that you take that into consideration. Maybe it's the direction that the house is facing, and will the sun, if it's backing to the west, are you going to get cooked in the summertime when you're trying to grill outside? Is that important to you? Maybe it's important, is it going to melt the sun off melt the snow off the driveway? So there's lots of little things that you might not be considering when you're just falling in love with a house. And we're going to point that stuff out to you because it will become important later. And we're not just looking to make a quick commission. We really are in for the long haul to make sure that you make good decisions.
75% of our business is referral, past clients, repeat business. So that tells it right there.
Yeah.
So as far as like hot spots, Max, what comes to mind for you? I think of like Overland Park is probably the number one hot spot most people reach out to us about and ask questions about.
Yeah, it for sure is. But then, if Lenexa is right adjacent to Overland Park and not really talked about a whole lot, but it might be considered a hidden gem. In fact, we have a video on Lenexa, and DeSoto is an up and coming area. So, we're not just going to steer you to the hot spots that are all the hype. We're going to talk to you about the hidden gems and really give you a lot of perspective on, how that can differ for price and for location and the pros and cons of each.
Yeah. Like if you're a lake lifer, you're probably going to want to be on the Lee Summit side. That also puts you close to Lake of the Ozarks. So yeah, it just comes down to what you're
what you're after.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at prices in the Kansas City Metro, it can vary dramatically if you're looking at a place like Independence versus an area like Blue Springs, which, you know, or Raytown. They're all right next to one another, but they can have quite a bit of difference as far as the experience of living in those communities. So we'll be able to give you perspective on the pros and the cons, and you know sometimes the price is like, whoa, this is almost too good to be true. For example, Smithville Lake is a whole area that is phenomenal, but on the north side of Smithville Lake is Plattsburgh, and so the difference between a property in Plattsburgh and Smithville from the school districts can be pretty dramatic, even though they're both by the lake. So, you know, if you're not a towner, you might not know the difference of those. You know, Piper's another area that is really kind of a hot spot, but it has a neighborhood improvement district. The taxes are a little higher. So Leavenworth is an area that we work. There happens to be a prison there. So, you know, we know the whole metro, and we can talk about the hidden gems and the hot spots.
So now that you understand the value kind of beyond the flashy neighborhoods, let's talk about the foundation, right? Where it all starts.
The bones, I like to call it. Whenever I'm showing a house, we'll go through the front door, and the buyer will be looking at all the fun stuff in the kitchen, and I like to head right down to the basement and look at the bones.
That's right.
Kansas City has foundations, so not every place does, but it's something to really know about because there are a lot of steps that you can take to protect your foundation, and it's simple stuff. But if sellers don't do it over the years, it can cause a lot of problems.
Yeah, and very expensive problems too, because everything's attached to the foundation. So if that starts to sink or settle, the whole house can the drywall starts cracking, all the doors don't work, tile starts popping, nails start popping, so it can be a huge mess. There are a lot of great foundation. In fact, my brother-in-law owns one of the biggest foundation companies in Kansas City, but there is a lot of ways to fix that, but there's also a lot of things you can do to keep that from happening just with some super simple maintenance.
Yeah, and it's just keeping the gutters clean and keeping the downspouts extended. You don't want the dirt around your foundation to completely dry out, but you don't want it to have a lot of water dumping right by the foundation and putting hydrostatic pressure on those walls, because if you get a lot of pressure, it'll push the wall completely in. There's signs that you can see when you're showing the house that to watch out for. There's cracks and shifting, and the foundation, the sellers can hide this kind of stuff too. So there's signs that they've hidden it, whether the door frame is out of square, or they've patched up things, or maybe there's brand new carpet in the basement, and and there's sheetrock up against all the walls in the basement. That can kind of be a sign that I wonder,
be something going on. Yeah, a lot of these basements will be finished, so you can't actually see the concrete work. The rule of thumb is you don't want to see horizontal cracks. Vertical cracks are okay, but horizontal cracks could mean the walls pushing in. The good news is not all inspectors in the Kansas City area do this, but our home inspector actually does a floor leveling inspection as part of just his whole house inspection. And that gives you elevations from the front to the back and the side to the side, so you'll know if the house has settled. Usually, most homes in Kansas City will have a 1 or 2 inch variation from side to side.
I think it's less than that. I think it's
maybe an inch.
If it's more than 3/4 of an inch, then it can be an issue, I think, isn't it?
It's more than you think.
Oh no, I'm thinking of the wall.
Yeah.
If the wall's pushing in from the top to the bottom, anything beyond more than 3/4 is an issue.
Okay, that definitely.
But the elevation, I think you're right, is a couple inches from corner to corner.
Yeah, something like that. But anyway, they do that test, and so you'll have that statistics or those numbers right then, and then you can monitor it later to see if it's moved at all. But for the most part, that's what you're looking for, and that will pop up in an inspection. But like Max said, there's lots of other things you can look for if you know what to look for that'll kind of point to that as well.
Yeah, a lot of times, it's if you look at the lot, I can look at the lot when I pull up in the driveway, and I can know we need to watch out for some foundation problems. If the backyard's sloping towards the house and they don't have drainage that moves the water around the house properly, more than likely it has problems. So those are the things that we're on the look for. We do not want you to buy a problem. Your problem becomes our problem, and we really want to avoid all that kind of stuff. So that's what we're looking for. What are other things that are for Kansas City that are problems?
For bones, well, we do have termites in Kansas City. There's a running joke that if you don't have termites, you're going to get them. So you do have to keep up on that and treat. I mean, they don't destroy your house in 1 year, but after several years gone unchecked, they can do some damage. So you definitely want to keep an eye out for that. There's treatments they do to monitor it. They can treat it every 5 years to make sure you don't get them.
Yeah, you don't want any wood coming into contact with the dirt. So, you'll see that sometimes where you do want the dirt up on the house to where there's a negative grade away from the house, but you don't want it up so high that it's coming into contact with your wood siding. So a lot of little things like that, maintenance issues that can be preventative. And one that comes to mind for me is decks. Whenever you see a house that has a nice big deck on it, it really is charming and looks like, you can really enjoy that sitting out on the deck. But a deck is a lot of maintenance. So, when you get a 2-tier deck and it's huge, you have to power wash and seal that baby every year pretty much.
The composite's helping.
Yeah.
But they usually, you've still got wood joists and all that, so you still have some maintenance. But
yeah, well, if you get a composite deck and it's not a covered deck, and the sun beats on it, then you can't go out on it in the summer because it's like a griddle. Unless you want to cook.
You can cook on it, yeah.
Yeah, you can fry some eggs.
You got a 40-foot by 40-foot grill or whatever. That's pretty nice.
Yeah, so there's lots of stuff like that we know and have dealt with. Painting your house, for example. You really, a lot of we don't have brick homes in Kansas City a lot. There's other cities just to the south of us, like Springfield has tons of brick homes, and you won't see hardly any of them in Kansas City. They're not the most efficient. You'd think that a brick house would be great for efficiency, but they're not. And we have wood siding, so you have to paint your house probably once every 5 to 7 years, depending on the quality of paint you use. So, if you go and look at a house and the paint's a little chalky, if it doesn't have a nice shine to it, then it needs a paint job pretty soon, and that usually could be $10,000 to paint your house.
Yeah, but there is like the newer stuff. We've got stucco, and we've got that hardy back siding too. So they're starting to get away from wood, so it'll last a little longer because you got wood rot around windows and older homes and all that stuff that you got to mess with. But
yeah.
Yep, definitely have to paint the outside. And then roofs. There used to be like you would never pay for a new roof in Kansas City because you just wait for a hailstorm. It's kind of a running joke, and then insurance covered it. But now with the insurance prices going up all over the world, all these natural disasters and all this crap going on, they aren't doing that anymore. You might get half the price of the roof, but a roof, even with an insurance claim, is probably going to cost you some money.
Yeah, they're depreciating them based on age, or some of them they're putting riders in the insurance policy that says they'll cover everything except your roof.
Yeah.
So you got to watch out for not only the roof that you buy, but the insurance that you get for coverage. So we know the best insurance people in town, and we can give you advice there as well. But yeah, paying $1,000 deductible and getting a whole new roof is becoming a thing of the past. So now that you're armed with these structural insights and we've warned you a little bit about insurance, there is another warning that I'd like to throw out there, and it is special assessments. And it's something that we both have some personal experience with. And anytime you buy a condo, it seems really like a great idea. I don't want any maintenance. I want convenience. I just want all these amenities. I don't want to shovel the snow, mow the yard, take care of the exterior building. None of it.
Sounds good, Max.
Yeah. In theory, it sounds good. However, you definitely will have HOA dues that could be, depending on how much maintenance is provided, it could be $600 a month, $1,000 a month, depending on the condo. And it might not even, when you think of a condo, I think of a big building, all under one roof, and there's actually other condominiums that look like duplexes. In fact, we bought one to help out a client that, had there was financing issues involved. And unfortunately, the reason the financing issues were involved is because of the Homes Association. They are notorious for not providing the maintenance that you think they're going to provide. So you're like, hey, I don't have anything to do with the lawn. And then nobody does. Then they're going to come in with a mower and mow, and keeping the grade up around the house, it'll start to settle. You'll get foundation problems, and then everybody's looking at everybody like, who's going to take care of this? Well, I pay my HOA dues, and then the HOA mismanages their funds. They end up getting a lot of deferred maintenance in the community, whether it's the roof, whether it's the siding, the paint, the foundation, it doesn't matter. It starts to add up, and if they don't budget properly for it, then they go broke. And what do they do when they go broke? They go to everybody in the whole community and they hit them with a special assessment.
Yeah, pay me. And what's funny is you can't sell this property to a financed buyer until all these ducks are in a row and everything's, there's like enough money to fix everything, and that's the situation we got in.
Yes. So as part of getting financing, they Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, if it's conventional financing, they'll do a condo review and they'll review the budget, the balance sheet of the homes association. And if they see that it's not good financially, then they will deem it non-warrantable and you can't get a loan on it. So then you're looking for somebody that's paying cash, and usually people are paying cash or not paying fair market value. So it can be a nightmare. And then, you get nailed with this special assessment. So they say, well, we've gotten financing lined up and you can either pay us an extra $400 a month until it's paid for, or you can have the convenience of paying us in a one lump sum of $10,000 or whatever the number. So there's lots of condos around Kansas City. The Western Auto Lofts, I know, are going through a lawsuit right now with all of the balconies have problems. And they're getting nailed for $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 assessments for each unit. Depending on the size of the unit, you get larger assessment. So definitely something to watch out for. Even though we wound up in a problem ourselves, we can help you avoid those problems. It's unusual how we wound up in this situation. But the house is under contract and it should be fine. We just cost us a couple of months of carrying costs. So we do know how to avoid it. We know how to navigate it if you happen to have an issue. I wouldn't say condos are all bad, but I would say they're not for everybody. Any other special assessment words of wisdom, Zach?
No, the numbers can always change and go up, and you pretty much said it. It can be a surprise. You're hitching your wagon to somebody else, and you got to play by the whole rules of the whole community.
Yeah, you're part of a cooperative, and so everybody gets together like in a democracy, and if they vote for, dues to go up so they can, provide extra amenities, and you disagree, then it's too bad. You're going with the majority. So you're part of a cooperative, and that can be a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing if you prefer to, have your...
No surprises.
Yeah, no surprises, have your independence. If having maintenance provided is important to you, then you could get a lawn service. And we know lots of lawn service people that'll, be happy to do your lawn treatments and mow the grass and that sort of thing too. So you don't have to be part of a big cooperative to get that stuff done.
Hey, so now that you know exactly what extra costs you might see, let's cap off our tour with the ultimate question. What does the future of Kansas City look like?
Oh, the future. The future is bright for Kansas City. I think that the market trends are really good, especially, I think rates are kind of coming down. They've been trickling down a little bit, which is helping unlock a lot of pent-up demand. But we've seen people are tired of waiting around for rates to improve. They've been putting their plans on hold for a couple of years. So we've actually had our best January and February in team history because a lot of that pent-up demand is getting unlocked. So I think the market is doing great. And then we have tons of new construction projects that we talk about all the time on this channel in Kansas City. Kansas City is going through a period of some significant growth.
Yeah. We've got a lot of people moving here too, since the new movement where everybody can work from home now. People are coming from the coastal cities, the expensive cities, coming here where the cost of living is a lot cheaper, and they're still making those East Coast, West Coast salaries, and they can just stack a lot more cash, hitting retirement a lot sooner. So it's attracting a lot of folks.
Yeah, I think one of the barometers or one of the metrics that we can see that you can't is we're starting to get a lot of sight unseen offers on our listings. When we put them coming soon or pre-MLS or the first day that they hit the market, we're getting hedge fund offers again, cash offers that are pretty close to ask price on certain price ranges of homes in the 250 to 350 range. And we hadn't seen that for a couple of years. So, back when the market was going nuts after COVID, we did see just tons of sight unseen offers, and then they dried up, and we're starting to see that come back again. So, when smart money is investing, then that's definitely a good sign that things are heading in the right direction.
Yeah, and we still are predicting right now kind of steady growth, 2, 3, 4% over this next 12 months. So none of this crazy 20% in 1 year stuff, just nice Midwest steady growth. So it makes it easy to kind of get in. You don't feel like you have to jump today because tomorrow it's going to be 10% higher. You know, take your time. You got a month or two, get something. If you're looking to move this summer, there'll be properties available.
Yeah, I think it's really a great environment to be a buyer because rates are coming down, but inventory has been building a little bit. So, you know, it's not where you have to be involved in these multiple offer scenarios and paying, you know, thousands of dollars over ask price and waiving all your contingencies just to secure a property. There are options where you can be a little bit selective. You might even get your closing costs paid. You might be able to beat them up on price a little bit if they've been on the market for a few weeks. So I think it's the best of both worlds where it's a really good time to be a buyer. And, you know, with the future of Kansas City projected to grow by 3% on average, I think, you know, your money's safe being invested in Kansas City real estate. All right, so finding the perfect home in Kansas City isn't just about picking a popular neighborhood. It's about knowing the details and truly the understanding how it's going to impact your life and your investment. Do you want a vibrant city living? Do you want a suburban feel? Do you want historic charm? Or do you want new developments?
With over 20 years of helping families navigate the Kansas City market, we know exactly how to match you with the right area for your budget and your goals. You can call the number on the screen, shoot us an email, shoot us a text, or schedule a Zoom call with the link.
Want a closer look at Kansas City's top neighborhoods? Well, click right here to check out a full driving tour of some of our favorite spots.
We'll see you over there.
See you there.
Bye-bye.